Hey, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Johnny B here with devslopes.com, and we got some exciting stuff that we are going to get into in this lesson. We are going to, change our channel view controller based on whether or not we are logged in. So right now we can, create an account. And in the last lesson, we created that notification that is kind of like a radio signal being broadcast saying, hey, we changed something. So how do we react to that notification? Well, what we got to do is add an observer that listens for that specific notification. Okay, so here in channel VC is where we're going to start. We're going to add an observer here in view.did.load. So to do that, I got to do is say notification center dot default dot add observer. This is the one we want right here. So the observer that we are adding is self. All right, so the function that we are going to set here in the selector we'll create right here. So I'm going to say func user data did change, and we are going to be accepting a notification here. So I'm going to say notif and notification. There we go. And remember, we also need to have that Objective-C here in front to expose it to the Objective-C. And so what we're going to do here, well, first let's add it here in this selector. So I'm going to say hashtag selector, and we're going to say channel VC dot, and it's user data did change. There we go. The name of the notification. So this is how we, tell it exactly which notification broadband to listen to. Okay, and so that is notif. We just put in the name of the notification that we created, and the object is nil. Okay, so now what we've done is we added this observer. So whenever that notification is posted, for instance, right now we only have it in the create account VC. So when we create an account, that notification is broadcast. And here in this channel vc.swift file, we are listening for that notification. And so whenever it's posted, whenever it's broadcast, we listen, we hear it, and based on when we hear it, we then call this function here, user data did change. So this function here is going to be called every time we receive that notification. All right, so what do we want to do? Well, we want to update our UI here. All right, so right now all we have is this profile image and the word right here. So when we're logged in, this is going to have the user's image and the user's name. When we're logged out, it's going to be just like this. So let's go ahead and do that. And this is where we get to use the is logged in boolean. So we got if auth service dot instance dot is logged in. So if we are logged in, then we're going to change the name of the buttons, and we do that by saying login button dot set title. Okay, and the title that we are going to set is we're going to string interpolate, or I guess we don't need to string interpolate. We can just say user data service dot instance dot name, because that's already a string. And then we have to specify the state. We're going to say dot normal. So that's the normal or default state of the button. Okay, so that looks good. Next up, we're going to change the user image. So we're going to say user image. Oh, you know what? I don't think we don't have an outlet for that. So I'm going to hold Option and click on the main.storyboard. And just scroll on over to here with the channel VC and grab that and the image and go control, drag over here, and I'm going to say user image. Okay, so that's an outlet for that image there. I'm going to go back to standard editor, full screen, and I'm going to say user image dot image is equal to UI image named, and the name is user data service dot instance dot avatar name. Okay, and then if we're not logged in, if for instance this notification would also be called when we log out, and so in that case we're going to say login button dot set title, and the title is going to be we're going to set it back to login for control state, again, dot normal. Then we're going to set the image back to the default. So I'm going to say user image dot image is equal to UI image named, and the name of our default is menu profile icon. And then we'll set the background color to clear. So we're going to say user image dot background color is equal to UI color dot clear dot CG color. All right, I'm going to save that, and let's run this and check it out. Oh, it looks like we don't need the CG color here. Just UI color dot clear. There we go. All right, I'm gonna create a new user, and if all goes according to plan, once it's created, then we should see the name and the user's avatar right there. So I'm gonna say Johnny at dev.com, password 123456. Let's choose an avatar. Let's go with this falcon here to generate a background color. And let's see here. That looks kind of cool. So I'm gonna say create account. We get our spinner up. And once it's done, hey, there we go. So now we are displaying the user's name and our user avatar image. But you see here that we don't have the background color that the user selected. So that also reminds me that we need to fix one thing here in create account VC. You'll see right here that when we create and generate our background color, we forgot to set this avatar color to this new one that we generate, okay? So what we're gonna do is back here in create account VC, and we're gonna say avatar color is equal to, there's gonna be a string, we're gonna have some square brackets, and we need to string interpolate the R value, the G value, the B value, and then just 1, okay? And so make sure that you're double checking how this looks. It's gotta be just like this with the, it's gotta be a string with the square brackets and then the commas, okay? So that's how we got to save that. So I'm gonna save it and run it. And click here, login, don't have an account. So I'm gonna say Johnny color, email johnny@color.com, password 123456, choose an avatar, elephant, fine, and I'm gonna create the account. All right, so again, we get the avatar image here and the color, but what I wanted to show you with this was if we open up MLab and I refresh our users, then we should see here johnny@color.com, and we are saving to the database this array of, or it's a string array of values, okay? So what we need to do is we need to be able to take this string and turn it into 4 components that we can use to then generate a new color, okay? So that's what we're gonna do next, and it's a bit of a challenge, but we'll get through it. Okay, so the flow again is we create a user, we generate RGB values, and we save that to the database in the form of that string array. Okay, so once we have that string array and we pull that back down as part of our process, we need to turn that string array into 4 actual variables that we can use to then generate a new UI color that we can use to set the background color of our images, okay? So that's actually we're gonna do that here in user data service, and I'm gonna create a new function to do this. I'm gonna close this bottom pane and give us some space here. And I'm gonna call it func return UI color, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna pass into it the components in that string format, and we're going to return a UI color, okay? And I'm gonna come back up here and copy I'm just over here in MLabs. I'm copying one of these color strings so we have it as reference. And I'm just gonna comment that out. And so like I was saying, we need to somehow extract from this string all of these, each of these values into RGB and A, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna introduce something called a scanner, all right? And so let's go ahead and create that scanner variable. We're gonna say let scanner equal scanner, and go ahead and initialize it with a parenthesis, and we want this guy right here, string. All right, and so the string that we are going to scan is what we pass into this function, which is components, okay? So when we call this function, we are going to pass into the scanner this string right here. And so what does a scanner do? If we click here, we can see that it says an NS scanner object interprets and converts the characters of an NS string object into number and string values. You assign the scanner's string on creating it, and the scanner progresses through the characters of that string from beginning to end as you request items. Okay, so you see in those sci-fi movies, sometimes they got those flying like little scanner things, and it'll shoot out some red beams and just scan something from top to bottom. That's what we're doing here with this scanner. We are passing in a string, and we are just going to start from the beginning and scan through it, and we can have specific rules and have it do certain things for us, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we want to tell it to do is tell it which characters to skip, because if we start here at the beginning, you'll see that we have a square bracket. Over here we have a comma, we have some spaces, and we don't care about those. We only want the numerical values that we want to end up with. So we're going to say let skipped equal, and we're going to create a character set. We want characters in string right here, characters in string. All right, so we're just going to make a string, and inside of the string we're going to put the square brackets, comma, and a space. All right, so those are the 4 characters that we want it to skip and not care about. All right, the next one we're going to need a variable called comma. And so because what we're going to do is we're going to be able to say, the method that we're going to use is we're going to say start at the beginning and scan up to a specific character. All right, so that specific character we want to stop at is the comma, because the comma is the one thing that is common between each of these that divides it up, right? Okay, so comma, and that's going to be equal to the same thing, character set, characters in, but instead of all of them, all we are doing is just a comma. Then we have to actually set the characters to be skipped. So I'm going to say scanner dot, whoops, not that one, scanner, our variable scanner dot characters to be skipped, and set that equal to skipped. Whoops. Okay, so now we are ready to kind of actually start scanning this. So we're going to need a few variables that we can save our RGB and A values into. So I'm going to say var R, G, B, and A. And so this is just a way to create multiple variables on the same line as long as they're the same type. And these are going to be of type optional NS string. Okay, and it's optional NS string simply because that is what the method that we are needing is going to be required. All right, and it's giving us an error because it wants a return of a UI color. So just to get rid of that error, I'm going to say return UI color dot red. Okay, we'll fix that later. Okay, so now we can actually start scanning. So what we're going to do is we're going to say scanner dot scan up to, and we want this one right here. We want scan up to characters. Okay, and we're the character that we're going to scan up to is our comma, and the what we're going to scan it into is our variables that we just created here, RGB and A. but to make it work, we got to do ampersand R. And that's just the way of saying for this function, which uses auto-releasing unsafe mutable pointers, we have to have this ampersand to get it to go correctly into our variables that we just created. Okay, so what we're saying is we're saying scanner, go ahead and scan up to the character comma starting at the beginning. So we're going to start here, and we told it to skip the brackets and the spaces, so it's going to skip this guy here, and it's going to say, oh, okay, here. So I'm scanning. Oh, here's a comma, so I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to save this variable into R right here. Okay, so we scanned up to the comma and ignored. We know what to ignore, and then we save the rest into R. So we can do that for the rest of them. So I'm going to copy this and paste it a few more times, because when the next line, it continues where it left off. So then it stops right here, or it starts right here, and it ignores this space, and then it scans this variable, and then it stops at the next comma, and it's going to save that into the G variable. And then so on and so forth, continuing from here, it grabs this one and saves that into the B variable, and lastly into the A variable. Whew, okay, so now we have string variables saved inside of these, but they're optional, so we need to unwrap them. However, if the unwrap fails, we need to still be able to return a UI color, because this function requires that we return a UI color. So we're going to have a default color. Okay, so I'm going to say let default color equal, and I'm just going to say let UI color dot light gray. That's just going to be our default color in case we fail. So now we're going to do some guard statements to unwrap each of these variables here. Okay, so I'm going to say guard let R unwrapped is equal to R, else return the default color. Okay, and we're just going to do that for all 4 of those variables. So I'm going to say paste, paste, paste. This is going to be let G unwrapped and B unwrapped and A unwrapped. And this is going to be G, B, and A. So if any of those unwrappings fail, it's just going to return our default color. Okay, so now we have an unwrapped string for each of these variables. But we need them to be in the form of CG floats, because the initializer for a UI color requires them to be in CG float. So now we got to convert these strings into CG floats. But as far as I know, there's not a direct conversion between strings to CG floats. There is a conversion from string to double value, and then from there we can do a conversion from a double value to a CG float. So that is what I am afraid we are going to have to do. So I'm going to say let R float is equal to CG float, and then inside of there we are going to say R unwrapped dot double value. Okay, so we're converting these unwrapped strings to a double, and then we're converting that into a CG float. All right, so I'm going to copy that and paste that a few times as well. And so this is going to be G float, B float, and A float. This is G unwrapped, B unwrapped, and A unwrapped. Okay, so now we finally have our CG float values for RGB and A that we can use to finally create our new UI color. So initialize, and we need, let's see here, this guy right here. So red is R float, green is G float, blue is B float, blue is B float, and A is A float. And then we are going to return this new UI color. Whew. So a little bit complicated just to turn this string of values into actual values. But I'm going to delete this and run through it one more time. We created a scanner, set the skipped and up to variables, and then we actually just scanned through, saved those into some variables of string, then we had to unwrap them and then convert those to CG float values so that we could create our final UI color and return it. All right, so I'm going to save that and let's actually use this function now. So back here in our login, not login VC, channel VC, if we are logged in, when we set the user image, now we can set the background image or the background color as well using that function that we just created. So I'm going to say user image dot background color is equal to, and we're going to call user data service dot instance dot return UI color, and what we pass into it is the user data service dot instance dot avatar color. All right, so I'm going to save that and run it, and fingers crossed, once we log in and we dismiss back to the channel VC, we should see not only the user's name over the login button, but we should also see our avatar image with the avatar background color. All right, so I'm going to click here, click login, say, oh, we need to create the account. So I'm going to say coloring and color at background, and the password is 123456. We're going to create an avatar. I'm going to go with the gorilla this time and pick this color here. So I'm going to create account, and let's see. Hey, there we go. All right, so now we have a way of converting our color that we generate and save to our database to an actual UI color once we get it back from the database. And so we're going to use this every time we open up our profile page viewer. Let's see here if I can hold up our mockups. Yeah, so we're going to call it here. We call it on every single message. And so this was an important function for us to create right now. And I think it's a useful tool to also know how to use that scanner, all right? So in this lesson, we learned how to use notifications, how to observe the notifications, and we also learned how to use the scanner, which is a powerful tool for working with strings, all right? So just to finish off, I'm going to go ahead and commit our changes, and then I will see you all in the next one.